Hello and welcome to the Rugby Chat episode 45. Hi, I'm Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul, and it's a solo show tonight. So again, please let me have your questions in the live chat on YouTube or on Periscope. You can also put live comments in there. Ask me questions. What do you want me to talk about? Anything rugby related, please. Asking no questions about who my girlfriends are or that kind of stuff. Okay, which we've had previously. So let's crack straight into it. And the stuff that we are going to be talking about this evening are obviously the new Welsh coach. Pivac has been named there. We'll also look at some of the Super Rugby quarterfinals and what we think those might be. And I probably should bring up the table for that. So we've actually got something to, so I can work get all my facts straight rather than just trying to do it from memory. And then also what we'll talk about, have a little bit about some mind games that's been going on, and we'll also have a chat about match officials. That's one of the ones that that's all the stuff I asked you, went out on Twitter and asked you what you want me to talk about. So that's what you've come back with. So that's what we're going to talk about. Please, also you can put questions in the live chat as well. So kicking off with Pivac as the new Welsh coach. So another Kiwi, surprise, surprise, as the head coach of for Wales, and Pivac's got a pretty good record if we. Have a quick look at it. Worked with Graham Henry and Steve Hansen, and is obviously from the Auckland region. And I'm just trying to find where it said what he'd won with Auckland. I think he picked up a couple of NPCs with Auckland. Did some work in Fiji, helping them win a Pacific Nations Cup, and also being able to. Also have a chat about. He also had a look at the Rugby World Cup sevens as well. Danny Turner says Canes versus Chiefs must be a lock-in for the quarters. It is. I will have a chat with you about that when we get onto that later in the show. So he's been both in charge of Fiji and Auckland before going over to the Scarlets. And you got to say the Scarlets have done really well over the last few years. And he joined just prior to the last Rugby World Cup and was watching. And that season was a season that we had both the Scarlets and Connacht do really well. Two fairy tale stories of two sides that hadn't been going well provinces for a while. Did well. Obviously, Connacht won that. One in the in 2015-2016 season. The 2016-2017 season, Scarlets then backed up and showed it wasn't just a one-off season. It wasn't that they hadn't lost as many players to the Rugby World Cup, and they went and won the whole thing. And then last season, 2017-2018 season, they also made it to the final, loss to Leinster, and they also got knocked out by Leinster in the European Champions Cup, and went was a semi-final in the European Champions Cup as well. So he's had some very good results with Scarlets, and that's shown that growth. Whereas look at Connacht, who sort of won that final, but have really just dropped away since then. The following season, they really struck. They didn't do as well, and then they really kind of struggled again this season. So. So you can see that actually Pivac has done a great job with Scarlets when the Scarlets and Connacht were perhaps results-wise at least in a similar place in that 2015-2016 season. Christian and Dan are both saying you've never heard of the guy. He is a Kiwi, and has used to coach Auckland. So hi Brent, great, thanks for joining us. And so it's I think he's a good choice because he comes with that success. I said two NPCs, won a Pacific Nations Cup with Fiji, so he's also dealt with playing internationally or where you don't get to see your players as much, and then also won with Scarlet as well. Obviously, clearly he'd love to pick up a European Champions Cup next season. That would round it off, but hey, I don't think a Welsh region has ever won one anyway, so that would be a big stretch and a bit of an ask, really. To me, the really interesting thing is the timing of this. So they've gone and announced it after a two-year search, which I think is a good thing. They've taken their time over it. They've talked to a lot of people, and they've announced it plenty of time before the Rugby World Cup, now that Gatland's going to be leaving after the next Rugby World Cup. But he starts in July 2019, so in a year's time. So he's going to be in the job for 6 months before he's actually the boss. So Gatland's still going to be around for 6 months. It's going to be a 6-month overlap, or around that, anyway, 4 to 6 months, or 5 to 6 months overlap when you've got the old boss and the new boss both on the ground. So it's going to be interesting how that kind of is handled. Will Pivac actually go to the Rugby World Cup as a Gatland assistant coach, or what's he going to do? Is he going to stay home and watch it from afar and let Gatland do his thing? That is going to be fascinating to watch, to see how they handle all that. Does Pivac want to have the same assistant coaches as Gatland's had, or any of them? So that's also going to be a sort of a question to see how that all pans out. They're not planning on making any announcements on those sort of things until next summer. So that's European time. So for a year. But I think it's going to be really interesting seeing someone who's been who's actually in the job 6 months before they actually start getting the work and getting actually to do the job. So that's going to be interesting. I agree with Danny. I think it's good to select the coach this early. It has certainty around for everybody. You just don't want the players to be distracted and pay too much attention and listen too much to the new coach and not enough to the old coach, while the old coach is still in charge and still taking them to the Rugby World Cup. And that's what they've got to really. It's the only real thing they've got to try and handle and look after. Just a quick reminder that tonight's a solo show, so please do put your questions in the chat, and I'll have a chat and I'll talk about them. Those are my thoughts on Pivac. He's actually a good choice, and because not only has he been successful, but he's also learnt the Welsh culture of rugby in Wales. He knows all the teams he's going to be selecting from. He knows the coaches who coach those teams. He knows a lot of the players. He knows about all the players. If not personally to talk to, he'll have planned to play against them. So he'll have done a lot of his coach scouting before he actually starts. Anyway, just naturally through his current job that he's been doing. So those are my thoughts on Pivac as the Welsh coach. Next, we'll have a quick chat about Super Rugby quarterfinals and what we think those are going to be. But before we get on to that, please don't forget to hit the like button if you enjoy the videos, and let your friends know about it. If you're watching on the Periscope, then hit the old retweet and share it out and all that kind of lovely stuff, please. All much appreciated. The best way you can help us is to let your friends know, and just to grow the community that watch and join in. These shows are pretty much Monday to Thursday, 8 p.m. Every night. So let's talk about where we're at with the old Super Rugby. I just don't seem to be able to find the table at the moment. So here we go. So the at the moment, with the way that the current standings are, the finals are going to be the Crusaders versus the Rebels, the Hurricanes versus the Chiefs, the Waratahs versus the Jaguares, and the Lions versus the Highlanders. But clearly, we've got one more round of games to go. And talking about Super Rugby, Danny Tanner asks, how about a new Blues coach? And well, they just signed up Tanner for another season, so that's not going to happen. There's no be any change there. So that's the how that is shaping up with the current standings. Going into this weekend, the easiest one to talk about really is the Hurricanes versus the Chiefs, who Hurricanes currently sitting in fourth in the table, and the Chiefs sitting in fifth. The way that the ranking goes by points first, and then it's the points difference that's after that. So currently, the Hurricanes are on 50 points, the Chiefs are on 45 points. They're going to be playing in Hamilton. So if the Chiefs get a try bonus point win and stop the Hurricanes from getting a losing bonus point, they can get on the same number of points as the Hurricanes. But at the moment, the Hurricanes have got a points difference of 135, whereas the Chiefs have got a points difference of 91. So 40-odd difference. So I think the number was 24 points that the Chiefs have to win by over the Hurricanes to get into a home quarterfinal. Sorry. So you've got to say that the most obvious quarterfinal to call out is that most likely we're going to see the Hurricanes hosting the Chiefs the weekend after next. After that, it gets a little bit more complicated because obviously we have the Crusaders who will finish first, but who's going to finish second and third? Currently, the Lions sit on 41 points and the Waratahs are on 44 points in that race. And the Waratahs host the Brumbies, whereas the Lions host the Bulls in a final round match. The Lions have only lost once to a South African side in the last 2 years. That was away to the Sharks recently. They haven't lost at home for a very long time. Now, both these teams are from the Highveld, so that's not going to help or be an advantage to either of these sides. But you're still going to say the Lions have a very good chance of coming away with a win from that game. Whereas the Waratahs hosting the Brumbies. Now, the Brumbies have had a decent set of results recently. Obviously, beating a New Zealand side, beating the Hurricanes they beat one of the New Zealand sides, Chiefs at home, didn't they? The Chiefs at home, and then lost narrowly away to the Hurricanes. No, it was the Blues. Sorry, no, narrowly away to the Chiefs, having beaten the Hurricanes. Oh, dear me, get this the right way around. But the Waratahs didn't have a great game at the weekend against the Sunwolves and took the red card really, and then another yellow card for them to really pull away. But still, at home, the Waratahs should beat the Brumbies. So that should defend the Waratahs' position in that second slot. And the Lions, so that win, shouldn't get caught by the Jaguares, who are 3 points behind. And so I'm expecting the top five to be the Crusaders, Waratahs, Lions, Hurricanes, Chiefs, in that order. We then have, after that, the Highlanders sit currently in 6th place, with the Jaguares in 7th on 38 points, and the Rebels in 8th. The Highlanders host the Rebels this weekend, and at home, you think the Highlanders would end their 2-game losing streak and would win that. And so I still think the Highlanders are going to finish 6th in the table. The Mr. Rugby World Cup says he can't see the Tars beating the Brumbies after last weekend. I agree that the Tars didn't have a great game against the Sunwolves, but sometimes you raise your game or you lower your game to the level of the opposition. And so I think so that's why I'm backing home field advantage still against the Brumbies. So the Highlanders, I expect them to beat the Rebels at home and to stay in that 6th position. And that then leaves things really kind of interesting, because the Sharks host the Jaguares, and Jaguares on 38 points, Rebels on 35, and the Sharks on 32. So if the Sharks beat the Jaguares, then they will climb above the Rebels into 8th place. So perhaps the most important game, or one of the most, perhaps the most important game this weekend, is the Sharks versus the Jaguares. I know that Andre, a friend and a regular viewer of the show, reckons that the Sharks will win that one, but he is a Sharks fan. Let's be honest. But after the Jaguares result against the Bulls last weekend, anything really could happen in that one. And that's really what it's going to come down to. Can the Sharks beat the Jaguares, climb up into 8th place and get that final quarter-final spot? And so the Highlanders in 6th place looks like they're going to be travelling to the Lions. The Jaguares in 7th place will head over to play the Waratahs in Sydney, is my expectation. And then it's down to the Rebels or the Sharks to travel to Christchurch and play the Crusaders, and let's be honest, lose. I think there's a good chance. I think I'm going to back the Sharks to beat the Jaguares this weekend after that loss to the Bulls by the Jaguares, and I think the Sharks could be the team that are going to play the Crusaders. So I think it's going to be Crusaders, Sharks, Waratahs, Jaguares, the Lions versus the Highlanders, and finally the Hurricanes versus the Chiefs. That's my quarter-final lineup. What do you think? Are you going to go with the same, or do you think there's going to be a change to that? And while you're having a think and doing a bit of a type, I'm just going to have a quick talk about some mind games. So we've already heard the Hurricanes coming out. Obviously, the Hurricanes versus the Chiefs. I think that it's going to be that obviously they're going to be playing each other back to back, and this is going to be a really interesting one on this one. And thank you, Mr. Rugby World Cup and Axavinio. They both agree with which way I think it's going to go, but this is going to be a really interesting one between the Canes and the Chiefs. Danny says, do you think the Canes will rest players this weekend? I don't think the Canes can afford to rest players this weekend. First off, they've come into this, sure they got the win, but they had 3 losses before that. So they need the win from a momentum point of view. Sure, the Chiefs are going to be resting D-Mac and Sam Cane, but I don't think the Hurricanes can afford to do that. But I do think both sides will be trying to keep some moves in the locker for the following weekend. But there has been some mind games out of the Hurricanes camp this week, suggesting that obviously D-Mac has to be rested for 2 games. And they've suggested that actually, rather than resting him for this game, that he might be rested for the quarter-final instead, which was a little cheeky jibe. Let's be honest, that was never going to happen. The quarter-final is a much more important game. And actually, the rules are that when New Zealand Rugby have set out or agreed with the Super Rugby franchises, is that they've got to rest the All Black players for 2 games in the regular season. So D-Mac has to be rested this weekend. He can't be rested during the quarterfinal. He can be rested during the quarterfinal as well, but they're not going to do that. Let's be honest. So, interesting to see the mind games going on there, which is all a bit of fun and games. It's going to depend on obviously the state of the game. If the Chiefs have pulled out a sort of 15-odd point lead, and they need to get 24 points, you can't. The Hurricanes are going to need to keep players on the park. But if the Hurricanes have got a 10-point lead, then you can see them perhaps sowing some important players before the end of the game. So some mind games going on as well. So let's just a reminder. Please feel free to put questions in the live chat. I've got one more topic to go, and then we'll go on to any questions that you might have. And for those of you that are listening on the podcast, so if you'd rather listen while you're driving or on the bus to work or whatever, then you can listen to the Rugby Chat podcast. It also comes out on there. don't forget, please, to leave us a 5-star review and let us know who you are, because I know that people are listening on the podcast, but why don't you let me know who you are, what teams you support, and what you'd like to hear more of in a 5-star review on the podcast, please. Anyway, let's talk about consistency of match officials. First up, the referee has the hardest job in the game. It's not any of the players. It's not the coach. It's the referee. He's got the hardest hardest job in the game, because if he ever makes a mistake, he gets scrutinised to a degree that no one else does. And one of the biggest problems with that is that, and one of the things that Owens has said, and I'm pretty much sure, he's been quoted a lot saying this, and I'm pretty sure other referees would agree, is that every single breakdown, there is the opportunity for there to be, for them to blow the whistle and say that something's wrong. Basically, there's a foul committed at every single breakdown if you interpret the laws of the game and by the letter of the law. So the referee has to decide which fouls are significant and which ones aren't. Which ones just let the game, and when do they let the game flow, and when do they whistle? Because let's be honest, one of the problems one of the complaints we have about referees is they're blowing the whistle too often, disrupting the game. We don't let the game, and there's no flow to the game. Well, they could do that every single game for every single breakdown. So first up, they have to let things go. They can't punish every single infringement. Adding to that, all the players are trying to cheat, or at the very least, to put it in a much nicer point of view, all the players are trying to push the boundaries of the laws at every opportunity. So they're trying to fool the referee and trying to make the referee make bad decisions, i.e., let them get away with things to slow the ball down, because slow ball means poor attack on the whole. So the sorry if you lost me there. My screensaver just went on. So one of the things that I say is that all the players are trying to basically cheat, or at least push the boundaries of the law and make the and try and get away with doing things the whole time. So not only is there a foul every breakdown, we have all the players trying to foul and trying to get away with fouls at every breakdown. So there's no way a ref is so the ref is always onto a loser from that point of view. So as I say, it's the hardest job on the park. We then have the thing: do we want consistent referees, or do we want empathetic referees? And this is one of the other problems. You can't have both. You can't either have consistency and empathy for the game, because the whole point of empathy is that that certain things will be allowed to go or be allowed to happen because they understand the situation in the game. And at which point you're not going to get, you can't have, just by pure definition, you can't actually have empathy and consistency. So that's one of the things. Hi Rose, thanks for joining us. So I don't see how you can have empathy and consistency in this. So and I think one of the things that's happened in the Super Rugby, at least recently, is the referees have made the right calls on the whole. The problem is that the people don't like the laws of the game. I think that the laws are wrong rather than actually necessarily the call is wrong. And that's what people are mainly complaining about. So, I think we have got a higher level of consistency than actually people realise, or people are giving the referees credit for. And personally, I think it's pretty much impossible for them to be consistent all of the time. Because I say all the players, because there's always fouls there, and there's players always trying to get away with fouls. So those are my points. There you go. And because it's the highest thing in the park, I'm not going to be bashing referees. You'll notice that through all the shows. Generally, I'm supporting the referees. Do they make wrong decisions? Yes, they do at times. But they do. But they're human, and the players make more mistakes on the whole than the referees do. Danny says, one thing that rugby refs have done well is stamp out players complaining and moaning. soccer refs let players get shouted down. Now, I'm not one also to compare soccer to rugby, and I don't. But I'll agree, I don't like the shouting refs. In fact, I would actually say the referees let the rugby players get away with too much. And in the first game of the New Zealand-France series, I liked the fact that the referee told some of the players to actually shut up, and also told Kieran Reid that not Kieran Reid, sorry, Sam Whitelock, that it was he was running the game. He was deciding how quickly the team had to get to the next scrum. It wasn't Sam Whitelock's position to let him know that. So I think they could actually go further, and I think they should stop the particularly the scrum halves from talking quite so much, and telling them, look, stop complaining about things and get on with actually playing the game. So yeah. So any questions, please do put them in the live chat. The best way for you to support the show is to let all your friends know about the show, please. Obviously, word of mouth is fantastic. You can also use share and retweets on social media. And if you'd like to support the show financially, then do please become a patron of the show, as Alex has done this week. So thank you very much, Alex, for becoming a patron of the show. You can become a patron from as little as $1 a month, and it really helps towards a lot of things. So, for example, the broadcast software I'm using tonight, that cost me only $odd. This microphone here cost me several $100s as well. And you can see all these shadows behind me. That's because I've got really bad lighting. And I really I would love to improve the lighting in here. And it would also be nice to give some microphones to get proper microphones for people like Arshwin and Herman, who are on the show on a regular basis as well. So please do become a Patreon of the show on YouTube. There's a link down below. On Twitter, you can find a link in my in the pinned tweet, and on the podcast also. It's down below. It's on the notes as well. Or you can go to Patreon, patreon.com / or / whatever way it is / it anyway. DrivingMaul to do that as well. So thank you all very much for watching and listening. Just a quick comment there from Brent. Says, tough job for sure. Law book is complicated, specific rules, but ambiguous in how they practically are interpreted. They are, and it doesn't also actually help that the commentators don't know the laws either. So, for example, when the referee blocked the French player and the ball didn't hit him during that test match, there isn't actually a law to cover that situation. Now, common sense says call it back, but there isn't actually a law actually around that. So it is also difficult in that kind of sense as well. So thank you everybody for joining in and watching and also listening. I'll be back tomorrow night with the All Blacks edition and hopefully get a guest or two on as well for that one. I've already got a couple of guests lined up for the Super Rugby preview show on Thursday night. So thank you, everybody, and catch you all next time.